When I was looking through the BOLDR website, there were so many watches that stood out to me. There were so many watches that I thought, wow, they look really nice and I'd like to own them. But there was one watch that really stood out to me. That was the BOLDR Voyage Antarctic. This is the one from the website that jumped off the page from me, jumped up the screen to me and said, hey, this is the watch for you. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James. You're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. And I'm talking about another watch from BOLDR, the BOLDR Voyage Antarctic, a watch that was supplied to me by BOLDR, and I want to say a big thank you to them because now I get to own this watch, wear this watch, have it in my collection, and share it with you guys. But as such, you would have seen that sponsored icon pop up, and I am going to leave a link directly to the BOLDR website so you can check them out for yourself. And if you are going to buy one, they're $449 US. And I do want to talk about that price a little bit more, but I'm going to leave that to the end of the video. This watch really stood out to me from the website because it ticked a lot of boxes for me. Firstly, I really like the look of it. I really like the specifications of it. I like the size of it, and it really felt like it was going to be an everyday watch for me. And as such, it has ended up being a watch that I've been wearing a lot. So now it's time, after wearing it for so many days in a row, to do the full in-depth review of it. So let's flip the camera and let's check out this BOLDR Voyage Antarctic. So when I was first looking at the website, on the BOLDR website, this here, the Voyage Antarctic, really stood out to me because on paper there was a few things that really looked quite good. It's a 40mm case diameter steel watch, which I do like. It has an NH38 no date movement, 200 meters of water resistance, sapphire crystal, and a great 30 days return policy or 30-month warranty. You'll see here in the sort of paperwork here, it's got the 30/30 warranty with your warranty card right there. Also comes with a little polishing cloth and the watch in this really cool little travel case. A travel case that you can actually use. Some of these travel cases that you get from companies are nice, but you don't end up using them. This one, I think, is actually very usable. But it was all about the looks of this one that really captured my attention. Firstly, that petrol blue dial that the studio doesn't really sort of show up. It's not until you get it out in the sunlight that you see this really cool blue effect. But I also really like the design of those hands. They are all brushed, which is cool. It's got like a sort of a Fotina style lume in there. Everything on the dial is printed, but they've got the two sort of colors because we got the sort of the 13 through the 24 with the BOLDR logo, Voyage and automatic there in white. But then we got the 12 all the way around to the 11 in like a Fotina. Fotina sort of printing on the outer tracks there with little arrows there as well, and a Fotina sort of lume inside those hands. And I do like this little touch of orange there on the end of that second hand. It's just a good looking dial. And I really appreciate the sort of design of those hands. And when you look closely at the hands, that brushing is actually quite deep and it gives it a really cool effect, and it actually sort of glistens when it gets into the sunlight. So you get this cool petrol blue dial that sort of changes in color throughout the light, and then you get this sort of glistening silver from those hands. There's also a decent amount of lume on this watch as well, so let's check out the lume because I was actually quite impressed. Being a sort of an everyday, sort of almost like a bit of a field watch, this one, I wasn't expecting the lume to be quite as good as it is. But then you look underneath that, and that dial hands and that lume, of course, is then sort of covered by a boxed style sapphire crystal. Has a flat top to it, so it's like a sort of flat boxed crystal. Really nice. I think there must be some anti-reflective coating in there as well, because even when you see the edge of the lights there, you can still see through it and see the time. Nice easy watch to read the time on as well. Very legible. I think that's the idea behind this one. It's meant to be an every single day watch, and as such it's actually got some good dimensions for every day because the case is 41mm. The width of the watch is 14mm, but part of that is that boxed sapphire crystal. Lug to lug is 49.2mm. Lug width is 20mm, and it's 160 grams, sort of to suit my 17cm wrist. Now, do be aware that it also does have male end links, but however, they do downturn a lot, so it really does fit to wrist nicely. And one of the features I like most about this watch is actually the case, both the sort of the shape, the textures used, and the different finishes, because we've got that obviously solid bezel there. It is brushed on the top, brushed on the sides, then has a step down with a very thin piece of polish in between, which is very cool. Gives you that sort of break up between brushed polished, then brushed. Down at the top here, the tops of those lugs are brushed, fitting into the bracelet there, which is brushed. Has a chamfered edge polished all the way along the top, chamfered edge all polished underneath, and then a downwards brushed side of the case. You can also see it has drilled end lugs there. And one of the other favorite features of this watch is this crown. I love the look of it. I love how the knurling is and how easy it is to grab onto. It's a really nice, easy crown to grab onto. Has hand winding, being a NH38, screw down as well, giving you that 200 meters of water resistance. And being an NH38, no ghost position, and it does have hacking. Now, I always do like seeing how all the movements from all the different watches are performing. So let's stick this one on the time grapher and see how this Seiko movement is performing. So those figures don't surprise me too much. 21,600 vibrations per hour, as you expect. A little bit of beat error. It's under 1, so it's okay. Amplitude's perfectly fine, and running about minus 10 seconds a day. I do find Seiko movements tend to be about plus or minus 10 in my experience, and that's perfectly fine for a day-to-day watch. Now, I mentioned it has male end links. They are solid. They do downturn a lot, however, though, so it makes it really easy to fit to wrist, even though they stick out a little bit. They fit very nicely into the case, which is nice. And this bracelet itself is actually a standout feature. It's a really, really nice bracelet. It's got polish on the side, brushed on the top, screw links. Feels really, really nice in hand and on wrist. A really nice experience of a bracelet. And then we come to the clasp, which I think is a bit of a standout feature too, because I really like this style of clasp. It's all brushed with a little bit of polished chamfer there, 3 levels of micro adjust, double pusher, logo etched in with that sort of line logo as well. When you open it up, you can see this all milled inside, and this is probably one of my favorite styles of internals of clasps. I really quite enjoy it. And looking at the case back there, you'll see there's a see-through case back with the bow of the ship working its way through to the Antarctic, I'm assuming, and that looks kind of cool. So it's something interesting and different to have on the watch. And on wrist, it feels really nice, it fits really well, and it's just a nice watch to wear. You'll see those male end links, they do downturn so much that they really do conform to wrist. So a really nice on wrist experience with this one. Just feels nice, looks nice, and you can see just from the sort of aesthetics of it and how it's sitting, it is just a really nice every single day watch. So what do I like about this one? What don't I like about it? And what would I change? Well, it comes down to the looks for me, because I think it looks fantastic. It's my favorite part of this watch. That dial, especially when it's in the sunlight with those hands, I think they are really cool. I do particularly like the crown. I think it's very cool. I like the sort of look of it, and it's so easy to grab onto. Bracelet as well is definitely a standout feature, and I always like a clasp that looks like this. There really isn't that much that I dislike, and to be honest, I don't think there's much to change. The only thing I probably would like for it to happen with this one is for it to be just a touch thinner, perhaps. Really, that is really all I would need out of it. And realistically, a lot of that sort of thickness is the box sapphire anyway. So I have very little to complain about this one. But I want to talk about the price a little bit more, but let's get back to me to talk price. When I first saw this watch on the website at $449 USD, I thought perhaps that was a touch expensive. And I only thought that because it was a Seiko powered watch, and I thought, well, that's sort of pushing the range of that sort of price up a little bit higher than I'd probably like for a Seiko powered watch. However, as soon as I got this watch in hand, it all became clear to me why it was costing this amount of money. This watch is not only looking really good, but it is really, really well made. And when you start to compare this watch against other things in this sort of price range, even with other watches powered by the same movement, now it makes a lot more sense to me, because the same sort of watches from Seiko with the same movement are the same sort of price. But you can't get a watch that probably is as good quality as this, as well put together as this, and as individual as this one from a micro brand like BOLDR. So I've actually been really happy with that price range for this watch, and I'd certainly be happy to recommend this watch to you guys at that price range. And guys, if you enjoyed this video, maybe check these two out next.